Once at an Apple event, Steve Jobs was presenting something innovative. Audience are waiting, curious, and in the front row was sitting Apple head designer Johnny with a notepad. And later, his quote, "I was sitting in an audience, taking notes, filled with my own idea." When Johnny first time shared the idea with Steve, Steve said, "No, it's not that good, it won't work." But later, Steve stood on the stage and presenting the same idea, talk about the same innovation as if it were his own. In this video, we will going to cover the entire journey of Steve Jobs, childhood to building a multi-billion-dollar company, and also what you can learn from him. So let's start with his childhood. Steve grew up with a sense of exceptionalism. He believed that he was different, he was exception. But how? A child definitely not born with that quality. So Steve's childhood was a bit different. His biological parents were not married, so they decided to give their newborn for adoption. And Steve adopted by Paul and Carla Jobs, a middle-class, happy, healthy, loving family. And Steve get a biggest emotional hit when he was just 6 years old. A girl from his neighborhood told him that you are adopted. It means your real parents don't want you. A 6-year-old child could not process those words. He ran home in tears and asked his parents, "It's true, I'm adopted?" And his parents reply, "Yes, you are adopted. But remember, we don't just get you. We specially chose you." And that statement changed everything. Instead of feeling of rejection, Steve believed that he was special, he was chosen, he was different. And he started behaving that he was exception. In school, he was curious than others, always show himself as a different. And one of his childhood story, by the end of his 4th grade, school teacher noticed something unusual. From his class performance, test result, he performing about 7th grade level. So school suggests his parents that Steve can skip 2 grade. But his parents allow him to skip 1 grade. But it's not just a story, it's an incident. And that incident made Steve believe more strongly that he was exception. He was different, he was exception. And that sense of exceptionalism later became reality distortion field.
Reality distortion.
The reality distortion field.
And it drove people crazy.
You could go to people and ask them to do something that they thought was impossible.
And by the age of 13, he started questioning religion and stopped practicing traditional religious practices. At 17, college student, but he don't find any real interest in college. So he dropped out. And then he joined calligraphy classes, the only classes he was genuinely felt interested in. And Steve's famous quote, "You can't connect the dot looking forward. You only connect the dot looking backward." At that time, calligraphy, beautiful handwriting, spacing, typography, it seems completely useless. But later, those calligraphy classes become the inspiration of Apple design, Apple's elegant typography. And in those calligraphy classes, something interesting happened. Steve met someone. And that made Steve rethink himself. Steve met someone very different. He had a magnetic personality. Whether he entered the room, everyone's attention naturally shifted towards him. He spoke with confidence, influenced people with his word, and he had a charismatic personality. And the person is Robert Friedland, 4 years older than Steve. Later, he also became a billionaire, and Steve deeply influenced by his personality. At that point, Steve felt he was missing something deep inside. That two became friends, and Robert often talked about Eastern spirituality, inside energy. And one day, Robert suggests a book to Steve, Be Here Now by Ram Dass. And in this book is about how an Indian spiritual guru changed Ram Das' life. And Steve, after reading it, decided he wanted to come India to meet that guru and experience the deeper spiritual world for himself. But how? At that point, Steve was broken, just dropped out from college, homeless, no money, no income source. So how he could come to India? And then one day he saw a hiring ads from the Atari company. He applied for it and got the job. It's 1973. By the end of the year, Atari's annual company trip came around. Everyone went on vacation, but Steve made an unusual request. He wanted to visit India, so Steve asked the company to sponsor his ticket. It's 1974. 19-year-old Steve came to India with his friend Daniel Kutke. Remember the book Steve read, Be Here Now by Ramdas? In this book, the story is about how Ramdas' life changed after meeting Neem Karoli Baba. Now the place called Kachi Dham. For the context, I don't know what makes this place so special, but many famous people have visited and spoken about it, like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Hollywood actress Julia Roberts, Virat Kohli, and many more. Many interviews they says कि after visiting the place, their life completely changed. Okay, back to the topic. But by the time Steve arrived, that guru had already passed away, but Steve decided to stay. He spent next 7 months traveling across northern India, living a very simple life, spent time with the locals, wore simple Indian clothes, stayed in small village ashram, attended spiritual gathering, and read spiritual books like Autobiography of a Yogi. And according to Steve Jobs' biography, Steve read this book as a teenager and he kept reading every year. And you know, before his death, he made a special request. Every guest at his memorial service should receive a copy of that book. It became the final gift to the people closest to him. Steve says the book changed his perspective of life. For Steve, India, the journey completely changed the way he thought. When he returned from India, no money, no business plan, but he came back with a completely different mindset. Okay, till now you just watched the video, but now here is your takeaway. Open your notebook and pen. Here is the lesson he learned, followed, and talked about for the rest of his life. And the first one, simplicity. This is the deeper lesson. His famous quote, simple can be harder than complex. Steve Jobs did not win because he added more feature. He won because he removed unnecessary thing. And even that's why he wore almost same simple outfit every single day. A black mock turtleneck shirt and blue jeans. Not because he don't care about fashion, just because he want to save his mind for bigger decision. And even that simplicity was reflected in his every single innovation. Before iPad, people carried CD, cassette tapes, MP3 players, confusing, limited storage. And Steve made it simple. One single device that can hold thousands of songs.
This amazing little device holds 1,000 songs, and it goes right in my pocket.
And second, mindfulness. Meditation taught Steve to slow down and notice every tiny details. And that's why Apple did not market their product as a feature pack. They market their product as a status symbol. And that's why they made their product experiential and worked on every tiny details. Even the thing most people never notice, the round corner of the iPhone, the box, how customer would feel when they open it, the sound, the tightness of the box, every single details matter. And the third lesson, following intuition. Steve often said that India taught him that intuition can be more powerful than logic. He believed that people don't know what they want until you show it to them.
They don't know what they want till I tell them what they want.
And that's why he did follow the market research.
How important is market research? How much did you rely on it in the early days?
However, once you have made that jump, possibly before the product's on the market or even after, is a great time to go check your instincts.
And his statement, experts are clueless. So listen to your heart, follow your instinct.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
And lastly, deep focus. Steve called it signal to noise ratio. Signal, the thing that truly matters, that create most value. And noise, everything that distracts you but doesn't make any meaningful difference.
His vision of Signal was the top 3 to 5 things you have to get done in the next 18 hours. Not your vision for the business next week or next month or next year, just the next 18 hours you're awake. You're going to get those 3 things or those 5 things done that you have deemed critical for your mission. They must get done today. Anything that stops you from doing that is the noise.
For Steve, noise is hundreds of unnecessary buttons, and Signal, the product that's simple, intuitive, and delightful to use. Noise, launching dozens of products to satisfy everyone, and Signal, building a few exceptional products that people truly loved. And when Steve returned to Apple in 1997, he cut almost 70% product and only focused on few great products. He said, life is full of noise. The biggest noise, people's opinion, and another, hundreds of good ideas. Hi, I'm your host Preeti. Welcome to Shining On. Here we learn from the best to become our best. So join me, do subscribe the channel, and let's grow together. It's completely free, simple thing for you, but for me, it's a lot. Keep growing, keep shining, and shining on. In early 1975, Steve Jobs returned to US and started building Apple with Steve Wozniak and Ronald Wayne. And just next year, 1976, 1st April, officially founded Apple. And just after a few months, they launched their first product, Apple I. But here is something interesting. Apple I was not the complete computer. Customer got a wooden motherboard and they had to buy keyboard, monitor, power supply and connected everything themselves before they could use it. And then just next year, they launched Apple II. And this was a huge innovation. And now customer only had to plug it into power. Apple II became a massive commercial success. In just first year, Apple generated $775,000 in revenue, and second year jumped almost 10x, $7.9 million. Third year, $47 million, and fourth year, $117 million. And by the fifth year, Apple had already gone public, and the annual revenue reached $334 million. The company was valued at $1.7 billion. But Apple's rapid growth, Steve's daily work completely changed. Instead of focusing design and innovation, he spent his time endless meeting, corporate management, accounting, company procedure. So in 1983, Steve hired John Sculley as a CEO, the former president at Pepsi-Cola. And the same year, 1983, Apple launched Lisa computer, and it became Apple's one of the biggest failure. At that time, IBM sold their PC around $1,500. Lisa cost nearly $10,000. It's too expensive. But why it's so costly? IBM played it smart. Partnership with third-party software developer. But Apple, instead of licensing existing software, Steve insists Apple engineers build almost everything in-house. And the result? Cost drove up. But that's not the only issue. He was obsessed about perfection. It's another example. Steve delayed Macintosh launch. Not because the product was not ready, just because he disliked the packaging. He spent heavily redesigning the box just because he wanted to create a dramatic unboxing experience. That time, present CEO John Sculley noticed everything. And in one meeting, he said directly, while every other company focused on building powerful computer, Steve spending his time on something customer did not even care about. And that statement hit Steve. Steve did not like someone question on his decision, and he didn't tolerate anyone who spoke over him. What he did? Something really shocking. Everyone knows Steve fired from his own company, but this is the reason. You will be shocked to know this. Everyone thinks that touchscreen technology was Apple's innovation, but no. 1979, the technology was developed by the company Xerox.
Invented a new technology called multi-touch, which is phenomenal.
I'm really excited to be here today because I'm about to show you some stuff that's just ready to come out of the lab. This thing allows you to have multiple points at the same time. I can use both my hands. I can just go right up and use all 10 fingers if I wanted to. Go like that.
Read this letter. It's 1981, Jeff Ruskin, the team leader of Macintosh project. Out of frustration, he wrote a memo to the Apple president, Mike Scott. I like Steve, but it's impossible to work with him. When someone shared a new idea, he instantly attacked and told that it's worthless and even stupid, it's a waste of time. But later, he presented the same idea and telling people it was his own. And his mood swing, it's extreme than your girlfriend and even mine. Steve Jobs parked his car on a handicapped parking spot, not because he was handicapped, but because just he don't want to work more.
I witnessed his incremental changes from sweet, super bright, goofy guy into a ruthless, stunningly successful business tycoon.
Steve asked a question, something one of his employee, and the employee gave an honest answer, but Steve don't like it. You know what Steve did? He just fired that employee. And the worst case scenario, for the longest time he denied his own daughter Lisa.
He knows he's the father.
And when Apple launched the Lisa computer, everyone wondered. Once media asked him, is it the computer name after your daughter? You know what Steve replied? Lisa stands for
LISA stands for Local Integrated Systems Architecture.
Local Integrated System Architecture.
He was like generally regarded as an asshole.
Not turn it on. Here.
Not a nice guy. Not a nice guy.
John Scully was in China for a business trip, and Steve arranged a secret board meeting with Apple's board member. His plan was to convince them to remove John Scully as CEO, but the plan did not stay secret. Scully flew back to US and made a statement. Either Steve stay or I. We cannot run Apple together. By that time, already employee board members are frustrated by Steve's management system, and company was also struggling. So the board chose John Scully, and in September 1985, Steve was forced out from Apple. And what next? Just 1 month after leaving Apple, Steve Jobs founded another company called NeXT. The company NeXT built high-end computer software for universities, businesses, and research institutes. In 1998, Steve launched his first advanced computer under NeXT. And again, the same problem, it's too expensive. Do you think he spent decades in technology industry and still he didn't understand market pricing? Of course, he did. Then why did he making his product so expensive? Because he wanted to create a perception. He wanted whenever people heard a product built by Steve Jobs, their mind would automatically think it's revolutionary, it's something extraordinary, it's different from other product in this market. Because Steve was not just selling product, he was selling exclusivity. And even during his toughest year, he never compromised that image. Although NeXT Computer did not sell the large number, so he shut down the entire hardware division and shifted the company's complete focus on software. And surprisingly, NeXT started to build some truly revolutionary software. And meanwhile, in 1995, Apple was in serious trouble. After Steve left, Apple innovation slowed down. The company released many products, but none of them created the excitement that Apple was once known for. The hype was gone. On top of that, the Apple software became outdated. And Steve knows exactly what Apple needed. A modern operating system. And the best one was the NeXT software. At that time, Apple CEO Gil Almerio and Steve convinced him that if Apple wanted to make a comeback, first they need a modern operating system. And the best solution was the NeXT software. And at that point, Apple did not have other option. So in 1996, Apple bought NeXT for about $429 million. And that deal brought Steve Jobs back to Apple.
The right direction is an individual who really needs little introduction.
Steve Jobs returned to the company he helped create and became interim CEO.
So when Steve joined Apple, Apple just 90 days away from bankruptcy. So how Steve saved that company? First, he cut down almost 70% product. Apple had more than 300 products. So customers were confused what to buy and what product best suited for their need. At the same time, company was overwhelmed to manage everything. Again, his belief, customers don't know what they want. You can offer 300 products, but you have to tell them what exactly they need. So Steve made it simple. Consumer desktop, consumer laptop, professional desktop, professional laptop. That's it. And second, he partnership with Microsoft. But why? At that time, Microsoft was Apple's biggest competitor. Instead of treating Microsoft as an enemy, Steve made a smart move. He dealt with Bill Gates and Microsoft, invest $150 million in Apple, and agreed to continue developing Microsoft Office for the Mac. This was not just about the money or the software. It sent a power message to the market. If even Microsoft believed Apple was supporting, maybe Apple was not dying after all. Apple rebuilt its reputation. And third, focus on innovation. And next, he launched a revolutionary product one by one. iMac 1998. It was huge success that made computers feeling simple and fun. It's helped Apple get back on track. iPod 2001. 1,000 songs in your pocket. And iPhone 2007. It's combined a phone, an iPod and internet in one device, changing the smartphone industry forever. When Steve returned Apple in 1997, Apple was on the edge of collapse. And within a few years, it became world one of the most innovative company.
Apple, the first company ever.
Be worth more than $3 trillion.
It is mind-boggling. This is the first $3 trillion company trading in the US, probably trading in the world.
And in 2003, Steve Jobs was diagnosed with a rare pancreatic tumor. First, he avoided surgery because he believed he could recover with alternative treatment. But by the time he agreed to surgery, the disease had become much more serious. And later, he called Walter Isaacson to write his biography so that people could learn from his life. On 5th October 2011, Steve Jobs passed away. His sister recalled his last words were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." And that's it from my side today. If you learned something valuable, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.